Hello guys, my name is Brian Burnham and this is my Module 8 presentation for moral compasses. The main themes determined from the resources that I saw as I worked through them was the definition of a moral compass, the importance of a moral compass, what it means to have empathy and values, also locating true north within your moral compass, and then a moral compass and decision making and how those two go hand in hand. I've placed my video screen the best place it can be where it doesn't block out too much stuff. The word behind my picture right there is Maine, obviously. Resource summaries, that's what's below that you can't see. The first resource was the Moral Compass video. In this video, Skip Lee explains that a moral compass a person uses internally is also kind of like the moral compass that's used by fishermen up in the temperate rainforest of Washington State when they go looking for hidden lakes, and if you don't have a compass, you're going to get lost. He said he hikes up there with his daughter, or used to when she was younger, and if you don't have a moral compass, you're not going to make sound decisions. If you don't have a physical compass out in something like a temperate rainforest like that they have in Washington and Oregon, you're going to get lost. You take a couple turns and you walk, just a quarter of a mile, and you could be lost for hours before you could even mosey out and find a road or something. So it's extremely important to know what your true north is. It helps us live our lives with purpose. We can be true leaders, and it creates trust amongst those we come in contact with. And trust is paramount in the decision-making process, allowing us to be the leaders that we need to be for people to know that ethically we are doing what is best for all parties involved. The second resource was a video about having a moral compass. The main purpose of this 11-minute video was for Baccaro, the presenter, to explain and emphasize his 4 main rules for building your own personal moral compass. He lists them as: number 1, put others first in your decision. Number 2, respect other people's dignity. Number 3, treat everyone fairly. And number 4, be honest. Personal experiences have gotten him to these 4 conclusions, and he references a lot of his interests and hobbies to illustrate these points. One of the things that he told us about is his love and passion for reading about Alamo history and the Alamo itself. And he references the Alamo and says that drawing a line in the sand is a demonstration to show a person's commitment to their personal moral compass. And if you know anything about the Alamo, like he talks about, there was 189 men or 300 men or something like that against like 3,000. And basically they were going to die. I mean, that was what was going to happen. And so they had to have firm beliefs that what they were doing and fighting for was what they believed in. And, the idea of that is pretty powerful, to basically march to your death for what you believe in. And you see it in aspects all over, throughout history, civil rights and sit-ins and protests and hunger strikes and things like that. There's just so many cases of leaders standing up for what they believe in and doing something to demonstrate that belief. It's pretty powerful stuff. The Encountering the Stranger resource, it focused on the connection between our moral guide and empathy. If empathy is the focus of morals, then many potential problems arise. The authors Matthiasson and Clip Moeller point out that both philosophical and psychological practices differ across cultures. So the idea of how and what we empathize with become a normative and cultural bound practice is difficult to quantify because different countries believe in different stuff. Understanding, thinking, and taking responsibility are key components in moral action. The authors also point out areas where there are major flaws in using empathy as an effective moral guide. For example, in politics. In my opinion, this was the most difficult article to synthesize. I think it was the layout and the organization, maybe. Possibly could be my lack of intelligence. Maybe everybody else thought it was easy. I don't know. But what am I? Who am I? I'm just a dumb jock. So I'm just kidding. But this one was tougher for me to synthesize for some reason. The next one was Concepts Unwrapped, Moral Emotions. This one was very poignant. It described how our moral decisions can be made or based off of many different emotions. The creators of this video, which was the McCombs School of Business, did a great job of showing a scenario, which was a man cheating on his wife with a woman from his office, and how everyone is affected by that decision and how they would react or what emotion would be created around the scenario playing out in their own individual worlds. They stated multiple reasons why people form the morals that we do. For example, the society's moral norms influence our self-concession emotions. The McCombs School of Business also firmly believe that empathy is the most important moral emotion. Again, we see the same theme about empathy popping up. This is a theme I've noticed throughout a large majority of these resources. Making moral decisions based solely on emotions, causes one's own rational judgment to be indefensible because pure emotion cannot drive any decision that is made. It probably goes back to that old adage, if you're super upset or something's happened, count to 10 before you react. Some of us are very passionate individuals, and if we make decisions when we are at our most heightened emotional states, then they may not be the most rash decision that we're capable of making. And I think that's what this this video was trying to demonstrate. Setting your moral compass to true north. In this article, the author Mintz describes true north as the right path to ethical decision making. It's a framework to guide our actions to how the author describes why true north is important. When you think about others, it's important to keep them in mind in the ethical decision-making process. The golden rule, which is something we all learn as children, is a good foundation to start, and it allows us to be on the right path towards thinking of others, because we will treat people the way we want to be treated, which results in morality in our ethical decisions. When you think about the pros and cons about your decisions, it allows you to eliminate certain options. And finally, determining if your decision will align with positive ethical characteristics will help you keep your moral compassion and your compass pointing true north. The search for a moral compass and a new social contract in the context of citizenship education. This was an interesting one to me because they went, kind of a completely different direction. It analyzes the idea of a new moral compass and the social contract being developed and aligned with different religious beliefs and ethical backgrounds. Johannes van der Walt explains that a new moral compass and social contract should be developed to reflect the increase in modernized, increasingly diversified populations due to large influxes of migrants to new areas all over the world for varying reasons. A majority of which is a result of social unrest, religious persecution, or revoking of basic human rights, like citizens of South Africa experienced during apartheid. This new moral compass's development would most likely be most effective if taught in schools, according to van der Walt. Which makes sense, but that would be something that when they started, it would probably take a generation, maybe 10, 12 years, to see any results because they have to go through the program the kids do, to then become adults and start using what they were taught. If you have an understanding of an individual's belief, a responsibility to others, which includes their individual empathy or moral imagination, an understanding of all religions and their beliefs, and respect for others regardless of their ethical backgrounds, are all ways to develop a universal moral code. However, even with these ideas or frameworks in place, the task would prove to be very difficult. And we're actually going to talk about that in the articles that followed this one. The moral compass. Similar to the article written by van der Walt, Brian Orchard states that it is difficult to form a universal moral compass because of the differences in personal backgrounds and religious beliefs. Individuals decide between right and wrong based off personal experiences, emotions, and cultural or religious beliefs. If we know this, it would be nearly impossible to form a universal moral code based off of all cultures, ethical, and religious beliefs. That's just, the idea of trying to do one universal thing when everybody is, especially in today's society, where everybody is hyper aware of other people's beliefs and rights, it would be very difficult. It would almost have to be like a dictatorship saying this is what we're going to do. And that's just, at least in America, is not the type of society we live in. The next article written by Steve Wood is called Our Moral Compass. And he's talking about the opposite of that and says that how each of our own moral compasses are unique. Leaders often make the mistake of not reading their own moral compass. He says there are three main reasons why we don't follow our own moral compass. And though they are, number one, the ethical choice that we're making will have difficult or challenging short-term side effects. Number two, the ethical choice is in conflict with what our company or the supervisor wants. And also, they may choose to violate their values because of the benefits the opposite decision brings them. Analyzing the consequences along with analyzing your actions and making a decision are all steps that leaders can take to help avoid the reasons above that were mentioned. And then finally, what is a moral compass and why do we need one? Brian Zitzman explains in his article, quote, "A moral compass helps provide an objective standard to help each of us define and address our ethical or moral weaknesses." He goes on to explain that without a moral compass, we would make decisions without thinking through the consequences of our actions. He says there are 5 reasons that we need a moral compass, and they are listed below: ground your identity, protect the greater good, increase self-confidence, be a good role model, and foster healthy relationships. And little, just subtitles of each one of those. If you ground your identity, knowing who you are and what you stand for allows you to make more definitive moral decisions. Protecting the greater good, justice, kindness, and equity are pillars of our society. Keeping those types of things in mind, I think, will help make good moral decisions. It increases self-confidence. This is the biggest thing that I've noticed doing this module for myself. I'm a pretty confident person, but I wasn't, tremendously familiar with where I stood on a moral compass. I've always had one, obviously. I'm not a sociopath, but not knowing exactly why I stood for what I stood for has allowed me, but knowing more about it now has given me more self-confidence. Obviously, as teachers, and some of us are coaches, and then we'll be principals, being a good role model allows us and forces us to think more deeply about our decisions because it's going to affect people. And then fostering healthy relationships. If you have closer companionship, that's a byproduct of having healthier relationships because of higher moral compasses. A sound moral compass can help you strike the right balance in your life between reason and emotion, practicality and idealism, and your needs as well as those of others, Zitzman says. All right, as far as my own personal moral compass, here's a picture of it. You can hit pause and look at it. But basically, my 4 main ideas are integrity, kindness, respect, and equity. And then I have written in between each one, if you put the next one with it, what comes out of that. So if I put integrity and kindness together, then that breeds trust. Kindness and respect allows for deeper, more compassionate relationships. Respect and equity allows those around you to feel safer. And equity and integrity breeds happiness. So I was pretty proud of this once I put it down on and got it written out. And then here are my resources. Took 2 pages. And then here's the correlation. I don't know if I can move this so you can see. It's not really anywhere I can put it. But you can hit pause and check this out. All right, thanks.